You may not know this, but over 350 million people worldwide suffer from some kind of autoimmune disease, like me. And if you're like me, you'll want to hear this interview. My guest today is the co founder of a company that uses the power of sunlight to decrease the negative impact on inflammation on autoimmune disease. You'll also hear why sunlight is important for all of us to achieve a healthy lifespan and age span. With a recent cover story in Scientific American discussing how sunlight boosts your immune system, this can be a potentially life-changing at-home product. Stay tuned. Welcome to Seniority Authority, the podcast where I track down experts to answer your questions on aging. I'm your host, Kathleen Toomey. Let's get smarter about growing older. Welcome to Seniority Authority. I'm your host, Kathleen Toomey. My guest today is John MacMahon, a serial entrepreneur in early-stage medical devices who has brought several medical device companies from startup through engineering and clinical trials before selling to mainstream medical companies like Covidien and Boston Scientific. John is co-founder of Cytokind, a company that is laser-focused on treating autoimmune disease. He is taking a product that is proven to safely and effectively stabilize immunity in dermatology to be used for the greater autoimmune community with a focus on treating MS. And the initial results have been very successful. John, thank you so much for joining Seniority Authority. I can't wait to talk to you about this product.
Well, first, thank you, Kathleen, for that gracious introduction. I'm really excited to be on Seniority Authority. I love your podcast. Lots of friends here in New Hampshire listen to it, and really excited on building to your community on some simple, safe things that we can all benefit from.
That's terrific. And truth be told, John and I have been friends for over 20 years, and he actually used this product on my dad in the early stages of COVID, and it was very successful. So I really am excited to share this with everyone. But first, John, tell us how you got into this field of new medical devices. What drew you to this?
Well, I was really fortunate. I was a late student at Stanford University. I was studying physics and electrical engineering, but it really wasn't resonating with me. And a flyer went up on campus to do biodesign, to really look at how engineers could impact medicine. And I went to that conference, and it's one of those moments in your life where I absolutely knew that's what I was going to do. So that was 25 plus years ago, and I haven't looked back.
And clearly you've been successful. You've pioneered so many successful medical devices. What intrigued you about phototherapy?
So it also weaves through Stanford in the greater biodesign community. So there was a fellow student that came after me named Evan Anderson, and he got psoriasis, and he looked up what was being done at the Mayo Clinic. And he thought, I could just do that at home. I could build some prototypes and I could treat myself that way. And he did. And I joined his board, and the data was exceptional. Mayo Clinic was actually an early investor once they saw what he was up to as validation. And I thought at the time that you shine lights on the lesions of psoriasis patients and the lesions heal. And the fact that the data showed that wasn't the case is what really started me down this broader autoimmune path.
Wow. What makes UV light special? And is there a risk of skin cancer when using it?
So those are great questions. So, if we think about the spectrum of light, it's 400 nanometers wide. So it's this wide. And then the dermatologists have isolated this narrow band of wavelengths So basically less than 3 out of 400 nanometers wide. And I think of it as like a chord. Like if I think about that as a keyboard, this is a chord that dermatologists have identified that's a beautiful chord that resonates with your immune system. And what I mean by resonate is you're covered with skin cells that absorb light, lots of them. They get photoactivated and they have evolved to be at this musical chord of ultraviolet B band light.
Excellent. I love that analogy. And you began, as I know, you began the first clinical trial of this with patients who are high risk, hospitalized for COVID in that very frightening time pre vaccine. How did those patients respond to phototherapy?
So that was really exciting for us as medical device designers. We had seen these great responses in systemic immune healing in psoriasis. We knew it was stabilizing the immune system, but we didn't know where to take it next. And so when COVID came along, it was a perfect test if this premise was true. So both in COVID and in sepsis, it's this overreaction of your immune system acutely that is critical. It's not the virus itself. And
Okay.
so we partnered with LSU and Baylor College of Medicine, and we did a trial with them in COVID. So, all the drug companies were getting in the race to try and help out. We're device people. So we said, well, this is how we can help. And we did super high risk patients before the vaccine. While we started the trial, the vaccine was just coming on board, but we reduced the 28-day mortality by more than half. So
Wow.
60% reduction in the 28-day mortality. And we drew blood at baseline at day 3 and day 5 to really look for the signal. The mechanism of why this is so beneficial is something that we're doing the research on. The fact that it's beneficial is absolutely clear.
And I personally experienced that. You did a favor for me, brought over a light when my dad, who had multiple comorbidities, got COVID pre-vaccine very early on. And it seemed crazy at the time, standing in front of this light machine, back and forth. And he, at age 89, survived COVID and lived several more years. So that made such an impact on me. And how exciting that you had the opportunity to do this clinical trial in such a risky time.
No, your parents are very special people, so we were glad to help, to do anything we could.
It made a huge difference. And as MS has been studied, neurologists realize that it's dramatically more prevalent in latitudes that have less sunlight, like here in New Hampshire, across the globe, which is what started the research into sunlight. And in fact, you have collaborated with an immunologist, very famous immunologist, Dr. Prue Hart, on her groundbreaking MS trial that was conducted halfway around the world. So not just here in New Hampshire, but across the world. Tell us a little bit about her trial.
So she is fantastic to collaborate with. And so the pivot from COVID really was because the vaccines came on board and everyone was thinking that it was solved. Now, we know there's a ton of long COVID out there and acute COVID. But what we did is we said the inflammation, the stabilizing of the inflammation that correlated with these patients that got treated, where was the next signal? Where was the next most sensitive population? And it's this MS group. And as the Scientific American article has a fantastic graphic in it, there's basically no MS near the equator. And if you cut the US in half, it's twice as prevalent in the northern half than the southern, and Canada is sort of triple, and then Scotland is the highest. So here was this signal environmentally that showed if you were exposed to UV light, and UV only comes basically in the summer in the northern hemisphere. So when the sun's low on the horizon, you don't get it. So you sort of have to store it up, the benefits of it, and then have it last through the winter. And as you
Hmm.
get up in latitude, there was a signal that it wasn't there. So that was a little nerding out aspect about it. But Prue is an immunologist, and she read the data as well. So a dermatologist is actively treating their psoriasis patients with light or phototherapy. And then the neurologists are actively treating their MS patients. What she did is she pulled them together. She
Wow.
said, I'm looking at the immunology, these signals. If you'll sign up your MS patients, we'll treat them like they were psoriasis patients and see how they do. And that was a year-long study. They only treated the patients for 2 months, but they reduced the relapses by 30%. And the results were fantastic. And we reached out to her about where we were going to go next. And she did something really generous. She said, because we were really using these state-of-the-art analysis to look for the inflammation, right? This is not a vitamin D story. If
Hmm.
vitamin D was a panacea since the 80s, we would all be doing great. There's something else that's in the shadow, and that's what we're hunting. And so she sent us her biobank samples from that trial. And so now we built on her data, and we're really bringing together neurologists, dermatologists, and immunology to show how simple and safe this can be to really bring down your inflammation. And that's what we're really all about right now.
That is such a game changer. First for MS, and then for the 350 million people worldwide that are suffering from some kind of autoimmune disease, because autoimmune disease is growing. And I think it's really interesting that your product focuses on the inflammation and calms that down, calms that system down. What does the product look like and how do people use it?
So I have one with me from the trial we did in the COVID patients, and it's also the light that's being used in the patient that's featured in the Scientific American article. Would you like to see it?
I would love to see it.
Okay.
Oh,
So it's about
wow.
2 feet tall. Let's see, you back it up here.
Yeah.
2 feet tall. This sits on a tabletop. So you pull it out, you put it on the counter, you light your torso. You start doing belly button to shoulders. And you start at about a minute a day because you want to, this is all learned from dermatology. You want to slowly increase it, like going to the beach, but only spending a little time
Yeah.
outside. And then you work up to about 4 minutes a side. So you treat your front and you treat your back, and you think about it as your body is a solar panel. So you want good, healthy skin absorbing the light,
Hmm.
going into those cells that are sitting on the immune system on the skin. They go down into the lymph nodes, which are also on your skin, and they make these things called regulatory T cells. And those regulatory T cells, which have been demonstrated repeatedly to be a byproduct of this, they just make better decisions for your immune system. And what I mean by that is when you look at aging and you look at health span, one of the things that we've studied is 90-year-old patients, 100-year-old data sets, patients over 100 years old. And what they share is a low baseline inflammation. So it's not suppressed. So you get a bee sting, it goes up, but it needs to come back down. And what helps regulate that are these regulatory T cells that are generated naturally by sunlight exposure and then amplified by using these lights because it really looks like we're back to that musical chord, that resonant frequency. So that's that mechanism that's happening. So it's not bringing the immune system down, it's feeding the immune system. And the immune system makes better decisions. And so your organs rest, your mind rests, you get better quality of sleep, less cog fog, but you can measure that, not just how you feel, but you can see it if you're doing the blood tests, or we call it N=1 experiments. Do a baseline blood test. We'll
Right.
tell you the panels we're looking for and see that it's not a placebo. You're feeling better, and this is why.
Wow. That sounds dramatic. And it sounds like something that so many people would benefit from when you talk about growing regulatory T cells that help you manage stress, sleep better. I don't know anyone right now that doesn't need to manage their stress and sleep better. So, would this product be good for your average older adult who has some sleep issues, has some stress issues?
Well, so we're pretty up to speed on the global trial data. What we're trying to bridge is the fact that these issues where you get a patient treated in MS or you get a patient treated in psoriasis, vitiligo, eczema, pruritus, there's all these individual trials. What we're really looking for and talking to the FDA about is this shouldn't be approved for an individual disease. What it's really doing is it's stabilizing your immune system. And so that really ends up in sort of a functional health category. And
Right.
so that's it, a different discussion. But I tell you what's going on is functional health physicians are reaching out to us because of the press, the Scientific American and the NPR interview. And we ask them, what is the inflammation profile that you have?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can do translational research. We can show you, okay, that profile, that much inflammation is seen as a driver in eczema. And these lights have brought it down. And then it's a conversation between them and their patients because these require a prescription. These are FDA controlled. And so we're doing a lot of education on that front.
Mm-hmm.
But the aging aspect that men at 60, women at 64, their baseline inflammation measured by CRP, which is a marker, it just starts rising. And every time you can't get it back to baseline, your immune system is aging you from the inside out. So if you know what's driving that you have a baseline inflammation that's elevated, it's certainly something to consider, to talk to your doctor about it. Reach out to us and we'll share you the state of the art of the literature. And what we think is really promising, there's a thing called cog fog, which is cognitive. It's just stress in
Yeah,
there.
cognitive fog, like you're not thinking clearly as usual.
Yeah. And that signal is inflammatory driven in the research that we look at it. So when the patient that's highlighted, her lifestyle in MS fundamentally changed. So an MS patient's fatigue, which none of the 28 drugs addresses, that's a $60 billion industry in the US for the drugs, none of which reduce their fatigue. It's so bad they don't know when it's going to come on that they can't leave the house because they don't know when it's going to happen again. They have the highest disability about holding a job. They have to, if they're getting a job, they absolutely have to hide it from people that they have it. And they want to be free of that. And so that's
Sure.
what we're really looking at. If that inflammation driver is keeping your organs awake, it's keeping your mind awake and exhausting you, then we're really going to help a lot of patients if we can validate that.
And those results are pretty dramatic, what you have found with Prue Hart to date. Those are very dramatic. And I would think it's a matter of time before it gets approved because this is a way medical device works, right? Is you take something that has worked for something else and you research it and you do everything that you're doing to see, does this have an effect on other factors?
It's certainly a very efficient way to go. And we've met with the FDA and they are excited about just the data we have right now to get it approved for pediatric MS, which is a sort of a specialty division of the FDA. They want us to do a bigger adult trial to get approval to repeat those results that Prue had in Australia, to repeat it in the US. And we've been raising money for that. Dr. Ahmed Obidat, out of the Medical College of Wisconsin, presented the trial design and the reduction in fatigue based on inflammation from the work we did with Prue, presented it at the largest MS conference in the US. We were really blown away because it was nominated for Neuro Innovation of the Year.
Wow.
But as an affordable therapy, it's an interesting fundraising issue because no drug company wants an affordable therapy. And investors really prefer really expensive products to get behind. So while we're treating patients now, we're also raising money to do that phase 2 trial because we really need to get Medicare and the insurers presently cover this for psoriasis, eczema, pruritus. We need to get them the data that does it again for MS. And hopefully we do it right for broader autoimmunity. Our generation spent a lot of time outside, and the generation in between has been told, lather up, don't go outside, don't get sun. And the data shows, in particular to MS, if you're talking about a risk for pediatric MS, if you take a child that spends less than 30 minutes outside and you compare their risk of getting pediatric MS to a kid that just spends 30 to 60 minutes outside, that risk of pediatric MS is cut in half.
Wow.
And if they spend more than an hour, it's 80% down. There are fundamental immune requirements for us to be outside and get sun that we're missing. And, Maddie Dykewald talked about cultural things that we can do. This is something everybody can do today. You can go outside and get some sun. Don't burn, just get some sun. And it's good for you and get your kids and grandkids to get a healthy amount of sun. It's really that simple. You don't need to buy a light to sort of take agency of your own immune system on a summer's day.
Well, thank you, because that's one of the questions that I have for you is our listeners are always interested in what can I do today? And based on this research and what you just said, get outside, put your sunscreen on, get outside at least a half an hour to an hour a day. And if people are interested in pursuing this and they want to purchase their own light box, what I read in Scientific American is that this very light light box is only $2,000, which is so much less than a lot of medication that folks with MS are paying for. Is that accurate? Can people just approach you and buy their own light box if they'd like to receive those benefits at home?
There's a caveat to that, but yes,
Okay.
that price is correct. That's the out-of-pocket price. And we talk about out-of-pocket prices, meaning if you have psoriasis or you have vitiligo, your insurance is probably going to cover the lights.
Okay.
And in that case, the most common light is the 6-foot tall lights. These lights, the one that I showed that we used in the COVID trial and Kathy used in the Scientific American, those are just under $2,000. They're made here in the US. We're partnered with the global leader, Phothera in lights, but these are FDA controlled. You will need a prescription. You'll need to use it under the guidance of a physician. So they will tell you how to use it, how they want you to use it, when they want you to check back in. And we help physicians, neurologists understand that process. Dermatologists know it well. And when patients reach out directly to us, then we inform them what they need to do and empower them to go talk to their doctors.
Got
They
it.
can't just reach out and buy it. It is still FDA controlled. And that's really allowed us to have such great depth in the data because of the trials that have been done. And that's what we're really trying to build on as we're going forward, is helping individual patients, doctors, dermatologists learn about MS. MS specialists learn about how safe it is from dermatology. We're building that bridge. And in the meantime, looking to raise money for this trial so they can be really covered by insurance and Medicare for all of autoimmunity. That'd be a huge win for patients.
It really would. I'm very excited about the opportunity that you're presenting, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing, bringing neurologists and immunologists and dermatologists together, bringing that data so that people can have access to something that is safe and affordable and powerful to change their health. And that is wonderful. John's company is called Cytokind. And if you'd like more information, you can look up his website. What's next for Cytokind? You said you're working on funding your next step of research.
So we have, I'm a nerd by nature, so we have a couple other publications coming out. So I think what is next, this Scientific American has really changed what we're doing because we're talking to so many more clinicians. Patients and clinicians are validating the need. Long COVID has been a huge topic for us. There's nothing out there for those patients.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 1 million patients with MS that we know have a super strong signal. There's 38 million long COVID patients in the US. So I think those are the clinical avenues that we're going to work on first. And, we talked to Anthem, the head of Anthem's chief medical officer. We've talked to a number of folks from Kaiser. They're actually supportive of this. So it's not often you get to say the insurance companies are supportive. And the reason is the results in dermatology, for example, psoriasis, Humira is $80,000 a year. It only treats the symptoms, which means you need $80,000 of it next year and $80,000 of it the next year versus $2,000 for a light. That's been proven in psoriasis. 60% of the patients that have gotten lights, they're completely happy and they don't need any of the drugs and any of those side effects.
Wow.
So we have alignment with insurance companies. And every time we put it together, we get it closer. And, you're inviting us on the show. That advocacy, your listeners at Seniority Authority, they want to be proactive. Mm-hmm. They want to hear about what they can do now. And I think that's really important for you to help connect us to them. And so I want to really thank you on behalf of our whole team for both your mission and inviting us on the show.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Cytokind, CYTOKIND.net. John MacMahon, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. That's our show for today. If you're interested, share this podcast with a friend. Reach out to Cytokind to learn more. And until next time, enjoy the chance to get smarter about growing older.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, John. That's our show for today. If you liked it, please tell your friends so we can reach more minds and keep the conversation going. Or follow us on social at Seniority Authority. I'm Kathleen Toomey. Until next time, enjoy your chance to get smarter about growing older.